I'm Kelsey Litchfield, and this is the Field Advisor Podcast, where I talk with local experts to unpack the latest agronomy information and research, giving you the knowledge to make informed decisions out in the field. Welcome back, everyone, to the Field Advisor Podcast. Hopefully you know me by now. I'm Kelsey Litchfield, your host, and today we have 3 Illinois soy envoys joining us from north to south. So we have Seth Wiley, who's up in northern Illinois, and then Matt Montgomery, central-ish Illinois, and then Mike Wilson, you're down in the southeast part of Illinois. And if reading Matt Reardon from Nutrien yesterday, he's our weather guy that we have on the blog, and I think he said it correctly. It's a tale of two Illinois, or two Illinois. And depending on where you are is really indicative of what's happening planting wise. So real quick, let's just go around and get an idea of what's going on in your neck of the woods. So Mike, let's start with you in Southern Illinois, because I know farmers are not very happy right now from what I'm hearing, and rightfully so.
No, it's pretty tough right now. We're about 10% planted in my corner of the state, and we cover 10 counties right along the Wabash River and about 2 counties deep. But I was out driving around yesterday, and I saw corn that's already V4, V5, and soybeans that are starting to shoot the second trifoliate, and then that's about 10% of the crop. Everything else is unplanted. Running into town, ran home and then ran back to the plant or to the office, and there was a John Deere tractor and planter sitting there stuck, and they were hooking to it with a bulldozer, and they weren't raising the planter up. They were planting on the way out.
Oh,
and I thought, well, that'd make a really good picture to send everyone. Oh yeah.
Oh,
I mean, they weren't stuck on purpose, but yeah, they were planting. They were going to drag it out. They were going to pull the planter through it. And I thought, I need to stop and get a picture. And I'm like, no, these are my neighbors. I don't want them throwing rocks at me. But it's that bad. Starting to really run today. Things are starting to pick up. But we just got a lot of water to get rid of still. A lot of water standing, and then we're getting a half to 3/4 of an inch of rain every other day. And we've got that cycle coming out of the southeast. And until we break that, we're just going to be wet for a while.
You got any soybeans in early in your neck of the woods, or
Yeah, we're probably 7 to 8% on soybeans and 10 to 11% on corn. It's really close, and that was all done first week of April. So we really haven't done anything since then.
Yeah, mid-May now.
Yep.
And it's the last month has probably felt like 6 months to some. So
absolutely.
All right, great update, Mike. We'll come back to you here in a minute. Let's just head further north. Matt Montgomery with Bex Hybrids. What are you seeing? I know you've been traveling the state, not just your own area.
Yeah, the area that I sit in, which is West Central Illinois. I was thinking about this a bit ago. You remember how, like, during every election year, they say, like, I can't remember what state it is, but like Ohio is like a snapshot of the U.S., or I don't remember what it is, right? There's a state that's a snapshot of all the diversity of the U.S. I would say this part of the world begins to kind of do that kind of thing. So if you're in Western Illinois, tremendous progress. I mean, I bet a lot of that is like 89, 90%, probably even better than that now. And then you get down to all of a sudden you hit Route 108 that goes through Carlinville. So kind of, I'm trying to think about kind of Litchfield, Carlinville. Think about it sitting maybe 20 miles north of that Route 16 unofficial boundary between, Central Illinois, Southern Illinois that sometimes we talk about. And you hit Route 108 and it drops down to 25%, or had at least at the end of the week. And then you go down and you start hugging Route 16 and it starts to fall off a little bit less than that. And you go over towards Shelbyville And, again, you're talking about that maybe kind of 20% or something like that. So not quite the same situation that Mike was talking about, but you begin to sense that this part of the world is where that transition in those two different states that you talked about, Kelsey, begins to happen, where you got kind of northern, western, with some really good progress. Then you start to trend towards catching that northern border of southern Illinois, and you begin to see that progress trailing off. Third, yeah, I'd say probably at third trifoliate and some of the earliest planted stuff. As far as the progress in western Illinois, Kelsey, I'd say this is probably 3 years now that they've managed to be ahead of the curve, right? In
Yeah,
the
I'm glad
state.
you said that.
Yeah, it seems to be for 3 years now, they've managed to get in, pretty timely compared to a lot of other places. Really take advantage of some of that early planning, yield benefit, or at least risk reduction, and how yield can kind of play out, where your highs and lows can stretch out as you get later in the year. They're able to tighten that up. And I'm sure that's going to play out really well for them again. They have some soils that aren't necessarily the most forgiving, not quite southern Illinois, but sometimes can be a little bit unforgiving. And that early planning benefit's going to suit them very well. So that's kind of the update from this transition area in the state of Illinois.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the Western Illinois. This is about the third year, because I remember when I first started with Illinois soybean, Western Illinois is done. We have a board member who's been done quite ahead of everyone else these past couple of years, and then they're waiting for the rain. It seems like then it's like, okay, we share some of your rain over here, because I'm sure they'll gladly take it. That's what I kept seeing in texts and crop reports. Oh, I'm getting too much rain. Well, can you bring it over here? Well, don't we wish that's the way it could work, honestly, but it doesn't, unfortunately.
I should say, just to make sure I'm getting stuff right here, there is some variability here, but it's nothing on the lower end like what Mike's getting to deal with, right? We're nowhere near that, but you can sense that transition begins to happen in this part of the world.
Yeah. All right, heading up north, Seth.
Yeah.
You're give us in the Ottawa area, correct? Like giving some region specifics of planting progress in your area.
Yeah. So I live in Ottawa, which is just north of Route 80, basically smack dab in the middle of the state. So, but I work and cover a couple county area with my employer. So LaSalle County, DeKalb County, Lee County, and Ogle County is kind of the geography I run in. So basically Route 80 to I'd say Route 72, just south of Rockford's kind of the zone that I work in. And yeah, to echo what Matt said, from Western Illinois, I would say that's the shape that we're in. I mean, we're basically, I'd say today we're probably 95% planted across the board, corn and beans. And really the last 3 years, we've really had some really good planting windows to get that done. So I would say the week prior to Easter is when the first kind of slug of crops went in the ground in the four counties that I cover. Some corn went in too, but I mean, all of that stuff is, the corn's pushing V2, the beans are just pushing second trifoliate. It's looking really, really well. There was another slew that went in kind of the end of last week of April there. We got rained out May 1st up here, and I'd say another percentage of that went in, and I would say by May 1st across the board, we were probably, as a whole, 60% planted, corn and beans. And then sitting here today, May 14th, I mean, we're very, very little is left to go in the ground. By the weekend, I think everything will be in the ground up here. So yeah, we're really sitting pretty well, pretty optimistic about the crop right now. We are drier. We could use a half inch of rain, but everything that's in the ground looks pretty good. That stuff planted the end of April. Did see some rotary hose going in the last week, as that's kind of that kind of got crusted there with that May 1st rain, but most of it's really come through and looking pretty good. LaSalle County caught about a 1/4 inch of rain yesterday, 2 days ago, 2 days ago. So that really helped them. But here in DeKalb, Lee, and Ogle, I've seen a couple rotary hose running, but for the most part, it looks pretty good. Corn, I mean, some stuff I walked yesterday. I'm thinking maybe we'd lose 1,000 stand in corn. Beans, I just don't get too worried about. There as long as they're at least 100,000 stand, I'd say run them. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at. So
I know Stephanie, our outreach agronomist, she's been fielding some questions about replants on soybeans, and we ran an article earlier this week over on Field Advisor with some resources from Science for Success. But for those of you that have planted, are you hearing stories of, oh, I need to replant now due to whether it would be environment related? There's also some questions about herbicide injury, things like that. Any recommendations that you're sharing with farmers right now? And this goes out to all three of you, whoever can take that.
yeah, I guess I'll start. Sorry, didn't mean to cut
go
you
ahead,
off there.
Seth.
But yeah, I mean, as far as replant, that we really even my part of the world expecting very, very little replant. As far as recommendations, I mean, on corn, I mean, as long as the biggest thing on corn for me is as long as it's even. I mean, I'm kind of okay. Where it gets really patchy is where I get a little worried. But I mean, if we got at least a final stand of 33,000, generally we'll kind of let that ride. Beans wise, a lot of guys are pushing bean populations lower. I think that's kind of a trend, especially up here on most of the ground we're working on is kind of Class A type soils. So really, I mean, like I said, if it's at least 100,000 stand and it's even, generally we're leaving it. So and a lot of planting populations right now are probably 120 to 130,000. Some still around 140. As we push later here, I always recommended after Memorial Day to increase by at least 1,000 per day. Was kind of always my old adage in ag retail. But yeah, so that's, I guess, my 2 cents there.
Matt, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest issue that I'm probably running into at the moment is, that this is kind of the land where high-speed discs are pretty popular, and needless to say, with some rain that came in, we're starting to see some crusting that's making it hard, and so you do have some trimmed down corn and bean stands, and so in some cases have been on some calls where we've talked about, hey, we're going to have to just replant that corn, and on the bean side, but probably some cases where it was thick enough that we said, yeah, maybe work it and let's get a replant in. And then of course, at the other half of the time you're talking about trying to spruce it up to something like Seth said, that's going to sit better than 100 at least. That's kind of where we've been at the moment. But I'd say that environmental thing has been the biggest issue that more recently popped up. And I'd say that's in just the last few days, maybe even the last couple days, that people have had a chance to go out and actually look, have been able to catch a breath, take a look at the crop that's in, and say, yeah, it looks like it's had a little bit of a tough time. But I think that's honestly been more environmental related, and some pretty broke down soil structure that packed pretty tight when we got the rain.
Mike, you're probably thinking, replant? Hell, we haven't even planted.
Well, I was trying to think of something scholarly to say, but it's really simple. Where we planted and water didn't stand on it, we've got a great stand. We've got 35,000 corn, 140, 150,000 soybeans, and then where the water stood, we got 0. So we don't have bad stands. We've either got a good stand or we got no stand. Luckily, the ground that was planted first is the first ground that's going to dry up anyway, except for in those river bottoms and the sloughs. I was down looking at some sloughs Saturday. Saturday was the Illinois State bird count. Now I'm an avid bird watcher, and I was down seeing what kind of weird birds were still sitting on the mud flats. And there are still turtles in the sloughs out where the corn was planted, and some really cool shorebirds and some ducks still. So, we're just all over the place. I had a farmer call me the other day, treats his own seed, has his own seed treater on farm. And he said, boy, I can sure tell the difference with the seed treatments we use now compared to what we'd have been looking at. We're able to save a lot of stands with the very good seed treatments we have today. And I look back at a time many, many years ago, and I wrote about it on one of the blogs that we didn't treat anything, unless it was foundation or registered seed back years ago. And now everything gets planted pretty much treated. And that I can't emphasize enough how much that saves us, because we just don't rot in the ground much anymore. It takes really serious conditions.
That's really proven it over time, hasn't it? Over the
Yeah.
last 20 years, boy, there's been plenty of opportunities for that stuff to show what it can do. And
Yeah.
seed treatments have really brought this to a much different world and management technique than what we used to do.
Yeah, I mean, the first beans I treated, we treated with Cap-10, and now we've got 4 or 5 or even 6 different fungicides alone without any insecticide that we're going out there with. And it just, I can't emphasize how much that has improved our soybean stands and improved the survivability of our seedlings as they come up.
Someone was just saying the other day, they were talking about the sniff test. Does that happen anymore? Do you know what I'm talking about there? I hadn't heard of it either. So it was an agronomist talking about, you can smell if the seed's gone rotten in the field.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, do people even do that anymore? I don't know.
Yeah.
I thought you meant the test to see if the ground was warm enough to plant.
No, they said the sniff test. I'm like, okay, you need to explain that a little bit more, but it was intriguing.
Mm-hmm.
So
just to echo what Matt and Mike said too, I mean, with seed treatment on beans, I mean, we've seen it here in Northern Illinois too, where we, with the advancement seed treatments that we're using now, I mean, we really push that planting date, especially up here where soils generally are a little cooler than the central part, the southern part of the state. I mean, the fact that we're planting beans in the middle of April, as long as your aptitude to risk on frost is all right. Generally, those beans will weather it pretty well and generally come out. So yeah, it's definitely changed the game, and kind of our whole thought process up here in Northern Illinois is the seed treatment on beans. So
Mike, to follow up real quick with you, with the delay in planting, are farmers talking about changing plans? Are they still going to go with their original plan? What's the vibe there?
We're not getting any questions about that. Okay. We're not looking at any rotation changes. We're not looking at any switching from corn to beans. We're really not looking at any changes on maturity on corn yet. Haven't had any of those conversations that I'm aware. I haven't had any at all. I did get a few questions about switching from ammonia, because we've got a lot of guys that are still pre-plant ammonia, switching to urea. With the tariff situation and the pricing situation, we can't do that. We can, but I can't. Economically, it's not going to make any sense for them. They need to go ahead and put the ammonia on. They're not going to pay any attention anyway. I had a guy the other day, not very far from where I'm sitting right now. He was applying ammonia, working the ground, planting it, and spraying it, because it was the only 105 acres he had dry enough to do anything, and he did it all in one day.
Ooh.
Yeah. Now, he did use his guidance with his ammonia and his planter, and he split the middle of the ammonia track with the planter. So he wasn't planting right into because we've seen ammonia scald on corn seed a lot down here, especially on sand. And he'll probably get by with it. But boy, we don't like to see that. We need to have 5 to 7 days after pre-plant ammonia. But Right now, they've got cheap ammonia bought compared to what urea and UAN are right now. And we're recommending going ahead and putting that ammonia on, even if you have to switch to side dress. That ammonia is still the best buy on the corn part of it. On soybeans, they're just going as fast as they can go.
Mike, you guys are probably feeling like this is playing out to be the old Southern Illinois story again, right? Punishment with water up front, and then it's going to shut off, all at once.
Oh, I had a farmer tell me the other day, he took one of my grandsons turkey hunting, and we were scouting birds and stuff, and he said, when it quits raining, it may not rain again till August 1st. And I said, Chris, let's let it quit raining before we worry about the next crisis. Can we just do that?
I guess you should slap my hands for even bringing that up. That's not very nice of me to.
But no, you're right. I mean, and then down here, we'll seal over. I mean, our ground will crack. Then, the joke was back in 83, the ground cracked so wide between Allendale and Mount Carmel on that patent soil type, which is some of the best soils in Southern Illinois. But it dried out and it cracked out so wide that one of the farmers took a 20-foot log chain and held onto the hook and dropped it down in the crack, and it went all the way to he never ran out of room, and then the chain slipped out of his hand. And in 88, it dried out again and cracked again, and he drove by the same place and he could hear the chain rattling. So, they've got a unique way of looking at things. But, that's pretty bad. That's a pretty big crack when you can hear the chain rattling, 5 years later. But now in 12, it was a different, his nephew's farming the ground now because that gentleman retired. And we went out there and we couldn't hear the chain rattling in 12. But honestly, it was so bad we didn't pick anything anyway, so it didn't matter. But, we try to, keep track of those things.
Seth, what about you for fertility up north? What are you advising around your area, or what are you seeing?
So most of that's kind of all been done. Luckily, we were able to get everything on. I mean, a lot of ammonia went on last fall, but actually we had a really good window here to get a lot of ammonia on in the spring too, whatever didn't get on last fall. Really just advising guys just to kind of stick with their plans. I mean, if, like Mike was saying, I mean, with tariffs and commodities and everything else, I mean, if guys had stuff prepaid and planned, really advantageous for you to stick with those plans, because spring pricing was not as good as last fall pricing for sure. So, I mean, really, then we had really good planning windows. So just kind of going with the flow and sticking with what was planned. It was kind of the easy button this spring, really. I mean, really, to echo too what Matt was saying earlier, the last 3 years have been really good up here. I mean, we've gotten good windows. I don't know if we've been in the garden spot, or I don't even know if I should say that out loud, but it's been really pretty easy, and just go with the flow. I guess the biggest thing up here, just as far as fertilizer and chemical applications, is the wind. I mean, it seems like the wind's been blowing every day for the past couple months, and retailers have been pushed on getting winded out on getting stuff sprayed. So I know there was a pretty big push there before the May 1st rain that they were fighting wind real bad. And I mean, we had some stuff that didn't get nitrogen on it or didn't get a bean pre on it before the rain came. And we had to change some of those chemical plans. I mean, if it didn't get the bean pre on it before those beans were coming out of the ground, we've switched that to probably a early post application in beans. Just because there's really been no rain since May 1st, and really a pretty slim chance of rain here next couple weeks here. So we're kind of just decided not to spray the pre-emerge, and we'll probably run like all the beans up here that we plant. We're basically all in the E3 camp. We got some non-GMOs, so luckily the non-GMO beans that just went in, I mean, we put a pre on those because that's our only option there, is to run a pre. So we're praying for rain on that to get that stuff working. But the post application stuff, I mean, we'll probably switch to like depending on pressure. I mean, a Roundup, Liberty, Zidua Dual. I mean, whatever flavor Group 15 you want is probably what we'll be running on those. But yeah.
A lot of with the sun coming up sooner, I heard a lot of sprayers going by my house early in the morning because it seems like about 9, 10 a.m. will hit and that wind would just come full on. So very difficult. But in my neck of the woods here in Knox County, things have definitely slowed down. I mean, there's a few planters remaining that they're getting in the ground, but a lot of emergence. And I noticed even from driving from Bloomington yesterday, a lot more fields around me are emerged. And I told Stephanie, I said, I think it's very rare for me to say that we were done planting before her, because she's down in the Taylorville, Nokomis area, and it's just been a crazy year for sure. And we're only at the beginning. This is only May. Yeah. So who knows what will happen.
I think oops, sorry. It's
no,
just a little thing too. I mean, to wind and retailers and whatnot, I've spent the last 5 years in retail, so still got a lot of connections with the retailers here in Northern Illinois, and they're all starting to put the skinnies on the sprayers. So if that gives you any inclination on where we're at up here, is that pre-emerge in 32 is basically done, and we're getting ready to spray post. And I would say Northern Illinois probably 60 to 70% of the crop is emerged. I would say, give or take, at least 50% for sure. It's a little area specific, but we're basically putting planting and pre-emerge in the past, and we're getting ready to run rows. So
Brandon Hall said that in his crop report yesterday too. He said the sprayers are ready, or they're just near done from switching over. Any other questions you guys are getting that you think would benefit our listeners? I know, like we said, everything's very variable across the state, but anything that you think would be beneficial to mention here?
I think you've hit on most of the questions that we would have been asked. There's the annual bit of antsiness that comes in about what do I need to change up, and you've heard everybody kind of say, hey, stick with the plan for now. Don't get real wound up. I'd say it's probably the biggest thing at this moment, is just those occasional folks that are wondering if they should do something different.
One thing I'd say, if a grower's listening that's down here in this mess, get out and look at your fields that you haven't been able to get in yet and really look at, because there's a lot of water hemp coming up underneath all the winter annuals, and they're little bitty devils, and you may need to adjust what you're going to do for your burn down. And if you've already burnt down and it's come back, there's going to be a lot of water hemp. I actually pulled a giant ragweed Saturday that was about 30 inches tall. So there's more out there than just the normal winter annuals that we're trying to burn down the first week of April. Get out there and look, because you're going to go out there and you're going to spray a glyphosate 2,4-D or dicamba burn down like you normally would, and it may not be enough. You need to, and then whatever residual you're going to put with it, but you really need to look, because there's some messes out there.
Mike, that's a great call out. I had a chance to visit with Aaron Hager here week before last, and talking about metabolic resistance, and that's one of the things he's talking about, is in many ways we're really moving back into a scout world. We've kind of been in this calendar mindset, where we do it on about this many weeks after this point in time. And his point was, I think we're going to have to really get out and look at stuff. And you're right, you can see stuff busting through at this point. And then on the forward side of that, I would say probably some messier fields going into the spring this year. We've had a lot of winter annual push through, and a lot of yellow fields down this way, more than I've seen for a few years, I would say.
Yeah, we're seeing, what a lot of the winter annuals that used to didn't emerge till the 1st of June are emerging in April now, and or not emerging, but taking off. And you didn't used to see these yellow fields with all the golden flowers until the 1st of June, last week of May, 1st of June, and now they're starting to bloom out. And then we're having trouble killing out with 2,4-D down here. It'll hollow out, and then it'll regrow like I don't know if it's, I know it's not crossing with water hemp or palmer, but it acts the same way. You burn it off and then it comes back out from the same root base. It's crazy. It's crazy. Yeah.
A lot still yet to come. Get out there and scout.
Yep.
I think that's been a reoccurring talking point on this podcast, as far as I can remember, is get out and scout, or at least get on some type of schedule where you're out looking. I know it's on my agenda today to go to the field, see what's going on there. I mean, where I'm at, we have some beautiful weather outside, so take it before these 90-degree days are coming on along the way. Anything we didn't cover that you want to mention?
The only other thing I would say, Kelsey, is, for Mike's folks in Southern Illinois, just know the rest of the state is pulling for you and praying for you and hoping you get a shot.
It.
Yeah, we're thinking of you, and we know it's a bad deal, and praying for your time to come where you get your shot here really soon.
Yeah.
No, we'll get rolling. And, these guys, we got a lot of really big fields down here and a lot of really big equipment, and they can get a lot done in a very short amount of time.
Yeah.
And, we're working, well, like I heard the guys say at Allendale, they're at the location this morning. They sprayed about 1,000 acres yesterday, and the sprayers were parked by noon, and they had to drive 25 miles up to where the farm was, but there was almost 1,000 acres in 2 fields, and don't take 2 sprayers very long, knock that out. We can get a lot done in a hurry. We just need a window, and it'll come. It may be the 1st of August, but it'll come. It'll be all right.
The what's going on in Southern Illinois reminds me a lot of 2019 in Northern Illinois.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was my first year in ag retail and first year farming, and I'm remembering all of those things. So you will get through it, Mike. It just takes time. Once you get the window, it's amazing what gets done in a hurry. So for sure. So
I know. I just wish it. We emptied the pipeline on ammonia down here in late March and early April, and everything's filled back up. All our terminals have filled back up, either with barge ammonia or pipeline ammonia. So we can run. We got product. We can run. We can get corn planted pretty quick. But and we got a couple locations that are done with ammonia, are all but done. But we've got locations that just haven't done anything. I mean, they haven't done anything yet. We've got counties that aren't 2% planted. Wayne County's a big county. It's not 5% planted.
Mm-hmm.
But if it don't rain between now and the 25th, it'll be planted. It'll get done pretty quick.
Yeah. Well, definitely keep us posted, Mike, Matt, Seth. You can read their crop reports. Seth, I just saw you submitted a crop report this morning. So if you go on to Field Advisor and you just scroll down a little bit on the homepage, there's a section for crop reports, and you can keep up to date with what's happening across the state all season long. And we'll be sure to have these 3 back on to get another crop progress update. Hopefully next time Mike will be like, everything's going great.
Yeah, it'll be awesome.
So, well, thank you very much for hopping on today. I know you got a busy day, but I appreciate you updating our listeners with what's going on across the state, and we'll come back again and get that progress here in a couple weeks.
Look forward to it.
Thanks for listening to the Field Advisor podcast. Unbiased, independent agronomy information to keep your farm moving forward. I'm Kelsey Litchfield, your voice from the field. This podcast is funded by the Illinois Soybean Association Checkoff Program. Stay connected with Field Advisor on social media. Follow, like, and share to keep the conversation going. And don't forget to subscribe to the Field Advisor podcast on your favorite podcast platform.